Jedi business, go back to your drinks.
Welcome. All are welcome. Young fans, old fans, thanks for joining another episode of Jedi Business. Joining me once again, Darthzartan.
Hey, what's going on, man?
I'm okay, I guess. How are you? How was your week?
Good. Just a busy week. Of course, the holidays are right on us too. So
Yeah, I know. I remember telling you last week I'd barely got any shopping done, and
right.
a week later, and I barely got any shopping done. Unfortunately, I think this is going to be the year of gift cards.
Yeah, that's not always a bad idea. I mean, it's going to be spent one way or the other.
Anyway, so we're here again. We have Skeleton Crew episode 3. But before we get into that, just real quick, we have I want to do a little Star Wars rewind. It was 10 years ago this month. It might have been late November, but we'll say this month that the first teaser trailer for Star Wars The Force Awakens came out. Now, next year, when the anniversary of the movie, we can go deep diver into the movie itself and everything. But just real quick, I want to get your thoughts on your feelings at the time and maybe looking back a little bit just on the teaser itself, the first one where, yeah, the first teaser trailer. What are your thoughts on that looking back 10 years from now?
Oh, I was pumped for it, and I still think of the three movies, it was probably the best of the sequel movies, just because, of the way things were set up. And I think JJ did a good job of sort of taking or moving forward with the franchise. But I mean, there were a few things that I certainly saw that was a little bit disconcerting when I saw the movie. But as far as the trailer, I mean, I thought it was a good trailer, and there were nods to the old stuff that we grew up with, and in addition to that, I think to me it was pretty clear that the special effects, there were sort of a return to the uh, sort of traditional effects, as opposed to everything sort of being computer generated. And so that there was kind of like some hope for, okay, maybe some new ideas, a new direction, but some nods to the past, and obviously, um, and my idea of things, maybe just a better sense of, um, basically just kind of returning to the past with stuff like the special effects. I think that a lot of the fans who've been with it for all these years, I think, appreciate the practical effects, in addition to the CGI stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's not to bash the prequels per se, but they definitely did have a sheen to them that was a little bit different
Yeah.
than the old movies. And just looking at, I just rewatched the teaser this morning, and just Williams music, the thump thump, and then the force. There's been an awakening, and I just remember I still get that goosebumps of just being excited and the thrill when the Falcon comes on and it plays the Star Wars music.
Right.
And I just remember how much thought was going into it, and questioning, like, who is this character? Who is this black
Right.
stormtrooper? Who is this girl? And being so excited. And yeah, so I mean, I was not one of the ones who was happy when Disney bought Star Wars. That we could go back, and I was actually pretty skeptical, but I can't lie. I was just, from this trailer alone, just the teaser, I was pretty hyped and excited for it.
Yeah. Well, the same thing, if we go back even further to the prequel trailer, prior to episode one, that I mean was the first Star Wars,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh
That was the
yeah.
first true Star Wars in almost 20 years. So that was really kind of, I mean, I had all kinds of I thoughts through my head, like, okay, what does this mean? Where does that? Who is that? Same thing, right? You start questioning because it's a different time, within the timeline of Star Wars universe. So
Yeah, and what's funny is we knew the basic story of the Clone Wars, and if you read the novels, you knew about Vader falling into lava and everything. You knew that, but still you didn't really know the story.
right,
So yeah, I agree with you on that. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, just a 10-year look back. I think Disney, as far as just the first thing out the gate with the teaser, they knocked it out of the park with that. So that was their first foray into Star Wars, and now that brings us to Skeleton Crew I don't know. I think we both kind of are on the same page that for what they meant to do and for what they've accomplished, they're pretty much right on. It's pretty good so far. I'm liking it.
Yeah, same here. Another good episode. I mean, obviously we get a few or at least one new character that I thought was interesting, which is towards sort of the back half of the episode. But all just more tidbits, more bits of information that come along that just make you still, to me, it's not where I felt like in maybe some of the other series, it kind of made me feel like, okay, well, let's get to the answer already. Here, I'm still enjoying the ride. All these little bits of information just make me think about, well, what does that mean? How did they get to that? Or how, it's still, to me, it's still interesting to watch, to kind of.
They're peeling the onion good here.
That's
I
right.
think it's
That's
like
right.
we're getting little tidbits like you say, but it's not a matter of like where I just seem to remember with I don't know why I felt this way, but with Acolyte, I just like, okay, are we gonna ever find this out? It's like episode after episode, they kind of,
Yeah.
I have to tell you something, and then it was kind of a letdown when it came out. But here, well, let's start it out. Episode opens with the parents. Just to bring something up, I remember. I don't know if you're not on social media too much, but one of the big things of social media that going around was they were saying that okay, Skeleton Crew, because they screened the first three episodes for the press, and everyone was saying that the first two episodes were good, but then they quote unquote go woke and ruin the show in the third episode. And I was like, what? And everyone's like, you'll see. And then basically what it was is because they made KB's mother two mothers. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I gotta be honest. It's like I think some people are just looking for things to be offended because okay, that just watching it, I didn't that did not even enter my mind as like of something being quote unquote woke or you know what I'm
Well,
saying?
I,
It
I,
just didn't
I,
enter my mind.
well, no, I agree. I'm of the same mindset. And I think it's funny because certainly I think clearly based on Disney's track record, those are meant to be her two parents, but it was never explicitly explained. So you could theoretically say that's the mom and their sister. But I mean,
Exactly,
my my my,
exactly.
my
But
point
even
is,
if it's not,
yeah, obviously in the big scheme of things, who gives a shit, right? but I think at the same time, it's kind of like there are people out there. I just had this conversation with someone yesterday. There are people out there, especially those on the right, that are very sensitive about things when it comes to quote unquote wokeness. Uh, I think there's almost a feeling of we got to find a way to shut this down, or we got to find a way to shit all over this show before it even has a chance to succeed. And it's kind of like I almost feel as though that's just become the agenda for some people. Right? There's always going to be haters, regardless. In other words, people. I mean, if you're looking critically at the show, they're hitting all the right cues. I mean, that should not even be a factor, really. But I think there are people that are just going to make an issue out of something that's not an issue, really, in my opinion. But anyhow, that's just kind of my 2 cents.
yeah, it's like I mean, we all know. I mean, say it or not, you all know Disney has an agenda in certain things with the way they stick stuff in there, and I don't, you can admit that. But the only time it bothers me is when it just seems like it hits you over the head. Like I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but just a real quick aside. I remember watching this episode of Star Trek, one of the new ones, Brave New Worlds,
Uh huh.
and it was actually a good show. But I just remember there's a scene where they're rescuing this. Uh, I guess it's a ship that's derelict ship that's just calling an SOS. And anyways, they're rescuing it, and as the kids enter the hangar, I mean, you could see the checklist in your head. It's like, okay, there's the white kid, there's a black kid, there's a Mexican
Right.
kid, there's a kid. You know what I'm saying? It
Right.
just, it was just so obvious. It took me out, and that's the kind of stuff that bothers me. It's not trying to push an agenda or trying to make this normal, whatever. It really doesn't bother me.
Well, I think
Gay characters don't bother me. It doesn't bother me, but it's
I
just when it just seems shoved in your face and
well,
it's like it takes you out.
no, no, I hear you. It's almost to me like so. What would have been gratuitous to me is let's say there was a scene where for 30 seconds, which is a long time on a show, if you're just focusing on a scene, a 30-second shot of two people of the same sex basically in bed. Maybe there's kissing, maybe there's some sort of other sexual activity, and then they're there having a conversation. To me, that would feel a little bit too gratuitous. Here, you can interpret that a few different ways. If you see it for what it is, okay, it is what it is, but it's
Yeah,
not over the top. It's not in your face. It's not gratuitous, right?
exactly. It's like, and then I expected there to be something else. The way it's just crazy. It's like I didn't bring it up last week, but I had been reading the comments. Oh, prepare for episode 3. They go off the rails. I'm like, it was just a one little, you know, like you said, 30 seconds is a long time. What were they on the parents in the beginning? Maybe 30 seconds, a minute. And it's like, it didn't even focus on those two. And it's like, I don't know. It just goes to show that, like you said, some people are just going to hate just to hate. And it's like,
That's
not
right.
even give a chance. But anyways, getting beyond that, the interesting thing about that is obviously they know that, it just seems weird that the mother, I forgot her name now, Fern's mom was like, "Oh, the droids will find him. The droids will find him." It's like they almost didn't believe that uh, Wim's father had seen a spaceship take off. So
Right.
that just seems interesting. And again, the kids mention it later. It's like, well, what exactly are they doing on this planet? That they're so busy, that the great work. What is exactly they're doing, and why is it hidden? But anyways, we go from there to the escape, and we actually learn that it is Silva, because they say Silva escaped. So we know that that is the captain from the opening scene,
Uh-huh.
Jude Law, who goes by, what is it, John Narod or something like that?
Now Wood, yeah,
Now Wood.
Wood, yeah.
And he does a little bit more Force stuff, which leads me to believe that maybe it wasn't just a trick, that maybe he does have some Force ability. Obviously, he admits later on that he's not a Jedi, but that doesn't, like you said, it's like just because you're able to it'd be like this. If I pulled out a book and studied and learned Kung Fu, that wouldn't make me a Shaolin master. You know what I'm saying?
Correct,
So
correct.
just because somebody is able to manipulate the Force of, float some keys or make a noise doesn't mean they're a Jedi.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you still think he's pulling a scam, or do you think he may have Force abilities, or what are your thoughts?
There may be, um, what would you say? He's, I forget the phrase they use. He's like force sensitive, right? Or something like that. But I think he's clearly
Exactly. Yeah.
a charlatan. I think he's clearly a charlatan. And I think what I picked up on in my mind was, as they were going through trying to break out, I think all that was staged. In other words, it was a staged by him and other crew members for him to appear as though he was the savior, the hero, whatever. It
You
was
know,
too
you
easy.
you said that last week, or you might have said it in a conversation text or something. But
Yeah.
I rewatched it again this morning just to see that, and I could see where you're coming from. But then again, it seems like the new captain, I can't remember his name now, but they were really after him. You know what I'm saying? But then again, there's a scene where the kids, where they walk through, they're walking through toward the ship,
Yeah.
and it's like, how do they not recognize these kids?
That's
You
right.
know, it's because it's a big station, but it's really not a big station. And
Well,
even Fern says, like, where she's calling back to Leia on the first movie, New Hope, that was too easy.
yeah, and I think to your question though, is he a force user? I think he's a little bit of a charlatan. He's probably playing off the innocence of the kids or the beliefs of the kids about Jedi and stuff. He may in fact be a little force sensitive, but I think what we're going to find out is he was somehow manipulating some of this stuff, and maybe there's a little wink and a nod at the end of the last episode, like, yeah, he does have some ability, but I don't think it's nearly even Jedi or even Padawan level. It's just kind of like he's just got some sensitivity to it. Maybe he has the ability to kind of push and move things a little bit. I think we're going to find out that a lot of that is done through trickery, and this whole thing was part of a scheme to gain the confidence of the kids.
But you
And
do think he's working with if anything,
well,
at least the head pirate?
it's possible that he could be, well, I just think it's possible that he could be working with the crew, but I think he's either one of two things. Either he's working directly with the crew, or he's indirectly uh, trying to gain confidence of the kids so he can go back and then show the crew, see what I did, and he can get back in good graces with them, right? In other words, he's doing this for an ulterior motive, and including getting rich if he thinks the kids are from At and
Yeah.
I just think that, but but you know what? Who knows? I may be wrong, but I mean, I'm still enjoying the ride regardless.
Yeah. So they get to the ship, and of course, then they have to go. And he says it's funny later on when he's called out for uh, not being a Jedi. He of course says, "Well, I never actually said I was."
There
And
is true.
and basically, as I'm rewatching this episode, I'm noticing that he never actually says that he is. They'll say, "Well, the Jedi." He's a Jedi, and then he says something. Well, the Jedi are like this, but he never actually says he's a Jedi,
The
and
kids assume that he is.
yeah, he's basically he's basically, and this is not to be political, but he's basically pulling what I call a Clinton, where he's telling these half truths, where you know he's hinting at it, but he's not saying it. It's live through a mission, and of course, any politician, that's just something I used to say. He's pulling a Clinton with his half truth, and I mean Hillary, not Bill. But anyways, so then he goes back to rescue the robot, and and I thought about something. It's like one thing you can't deny with Disney, whether you like what they're doing, or their writing, or what their choices they made. One thing I just thinking back, maybe you have a different opinion, or you have some thoughts on this, but one thing Disney can do is write robots. It's like
Yeah.
it seems like every robot, and they're not all the same either. That's what's crazy. It's like they all have, just thinking back to the one from Rogue One, uh, some of the other ones, even from Solo. It's like, and then from this show, it's like, man, it's like they really know how to write and I ain't gonna laugh for whatever reason when he wakes up that one, and that one robot's like, I have to save the prince, but I can't see and then if you look in the background, he's running into the wall. It's like just stupid stuff like that. I just thought was hilarious, but I
Well,
think they can do
think,
robots.
think about how many other, I guess, either shows or movies have tried to imitate the Star Wars vibe or the feeling for robots and droids and what have you. So I think you're right. They've not only done a good job at the writing portion, but let's also think that they've gotten some pretty good actors to do the voice work too.
Yep, the
So
looks,
that
the
it
actors.
all combined, they do a heck of a job, I think, conveying, uh, I guess, for lack of a better word, a personality of a droid.
Yep. Okay, so uh excuse me, he gets back, and this is one of the problems I had coming up when they're tied to the station by the fueling rod, or whatever you call it. And one thing, there's something that John Campea, actually it might even be him, or might have been Rob Burnett, but where they say if you have a show, or a story, or a world, and it has these fantastical things that can happen, they still have to have rules, and you follow
Ah,
the rules within that universe. That's what makes it make sense. Even if it's something fantastical that we don't have in our world, it still has rules to follow within its own world. And one thing that I feel Disney has failed is following the rules of Star Wars when it comes to hyperspace. It's
mm,
like, if you remember, even going by the first movie, you know, driving through hyperspace isn't like dust and crops. You gotta, without precise calculation, you don't just hop into hyperspace. You know what I'm saying? And they
yeah.
pretty much followed it throughout Lucas and the Clone Wars. But going back to when they did the stupidest the Holdor maneuver, or whatever, from the movie that must not be named. You know what I'm saying? When they went to hyperspace to cut through that
Right.
the pursuing, and then this one, when he goes into hyperspace, uh, still tethered to the station. You know what I'm saying? It kind of takes me out of it. The only other redeeming one is later on. They do have to get out of the planetary well when they make that jump at the end, when they're getting away from the X-wings. But I don't know. I just, it didn't make sense that he can go into hyperspace when he's still stuck to the station. You know what I'm saying? Seemed like there'd be a bigger consequence to that.
Well,
Or maybe I'm being nitpicky.
no, I mean, I look at it. I mean, there could be some truth in that. I guess I just don't know enough about. I mean, from like whether it's a fan's perspective, or if obviously I'd have to work on the show to think what, or figure out what they were thinking when they wrote that portion. But it makes me think, now that you mention it, is it the way? In other words, the way it played out, is that how it would have played out in that universe based on their rules, or um, would that only apply if for some reason there was like some type of a dampener, some type of to basically, I'm sure, just like they have a restraining bolt that they put on droids to kind of like not allow them to do certain things. I wonder if you're in dock or if you're hooked up to something like that. If it's just a cable, I don't see why that would prevent them from going. But if it's somehow attached to a device that somehow would put a dampener on the system of the ship,
Yep,
then I
yeah.
could see that being a little more. So I just don't know
I
enough.
see. I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
I just don't know enough about the technology to think one way or the other if that's playing by the rules or not. But I could see why you would think that, though, because then you think, well, wouldn't that have potentially pulled part of the station with it, right? Or
Yeah,
what?
somehow, right? I don't know. I don't know. I guess that makes sense though what you're saying about that. That and plus now thinking about it more, it's like I suppose it would be the gravity well of a planet. And this is just a station, so its pull wouldn't be as much as saying trying to hyperspace from too close to a planet.
That might have
Um
actually been a little bit funnier if they would have been able to pull some of that with it, and maybe someone took a ride with the. Because there's, I don't know if I'm assuming that those turret ports are probably automated, but who knows? Maybe there were people inside there, because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it would have been funny to see that pull with them to their next stop. But I guess they had other things to worry about in the plot of the show. So
Yeah. So once again they head off into hyperspace and he's going to a planet with this friend, and we get some good interaction between him and the kids and him and the robot. Obviously, KB doesn't trust him. She pretty much says he's not a Jedi and this and that. I thought it was really well done.
yeah,
And then we we get to the planet, and one thing again that Lucasfilm or Disney, however you want to say it, can do is they can make the planets look good. That landing, that to the moon, I thought that all looked good. Special effects all looked
oh
really
yeah,
good.
oh yeah.
Eh,
It's funny. On a side note to that, I've noticed, at least in my mind, for as much as I know Disney in general and a lot of movies have been affected by this, but we've seen for the last several years, especially coming out of COVID, that there seemed to be a shortage of special effects people working on movies, and sometimes they felt like they were rushed, like on the Marvel project. Some of them,
Yep.
right? So you can
You
see some of
you definitely seen a weakness in Marvel in recent times.
but for me, maybe it's because it's Lucas. It's kind of like the people that are in house working on the Star Wars stuff. To me, they kind of keep it. They try and keep it at the top notch level. Maybe because it is Star Wars and that's where it came out of. So
Yep.
maybe there's a little bit of a bias there. But to me, that they've always done a pretty good job of keeping some consistency with quality for the special effects within the Star Wars stuff.
Yep. Agree on that one. Definitely. So we get to that planet, and of course, we get a little bit more callback. Like I said, there's little callbacks here and there, like when Fern said that was too easy, calling back Princess Leia, and then we get a callback to when the Falcon landed on Bespin, and he's like, "Well, he's my friend, but I don't necessarily trust him." When they're going to meet his friend, and of course, we learned that he has another side name, Crimson Jack.
Yeah.
So, and then what's funny? It's like when they go in and they meet that new character, the owl, which I can't remember her
I,
name,
I just pulled her up on Wikipedia. It's Kim, but it's
Kim.
spelled differently. Yeah.
And that her whole place actually, funny enough, it reminded me of Agra from the Dark
It,
Crystal.
bingo. I was thinking the same thing, and we had just talked about that last week. So,
Exactly. Yeah, it was funny because that's exactly what I thought. I was like, "Whoa, this is like Agra's place."
well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think even her voice somewhat mimicked her a little bit. I mean, it was kind of like a Disney or a Star Wars version of the Dark Crystal's Agra.
Yeah, yeah, maybe a little nod to that. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, and then we get the whole Ad Adam story. We get a little, which was like you said, we're getting little reveals here and there, more and more, which I thought that was kind of cool the way they explained it,
Right.
and kind of cool how they explained that there were other planets too. So, and they said they were all destroyed, but who knows? Maybe one will come up. So,
Right.
yeah. So, it just leads to the whole point of like, okay, did the old republic somehow put some kind of something in place to hide them, or what I'm saying? It's like, or
Well,
they
and
were picked for certain places where they were hidden by
yeah,
solar storms or something. You know what I'm saying?
why were they hidden and what were they hiding? In addition to the planet, obviously they all had something special, right? So what is it that? I mean, we've heard now a few times, Ad-Atten has it's a world of treasure and all that. Well, I'm not. Maybe in the pirates' minds, they're thinking like kind of like the traditional pirate here on Earth, where you're thinking, all this gold and
But it could be knowledge or something too, huh?
well, but I think I think it's something bigger than that. There may be some material things, but I think the jewel or the prize is going to be something bigger than just material wealth. You know, it's something else. Why these planets were basically hidden.
Yeah, yeah. Or who knows? Maybe it could be like, say they were like the treasury planet that where they were actually minting the
Oh,
money or something. You know what I'm
you know,
saying?
you're right. Because you would think that if the kid had brand new, to me they look like brand new uh, credits from the old Republic. I don't think that would have stayed that way for years, much less decades or over a century, depending on how long this planet's been out of sync.
Yeah,
So
they look freshly minted.
you might be right. There could be something like that here.
Okay, so then we get X-wings, and that's always nice to see. And that's a nice little chase they have after there when they get in the turrets and everything. I don't know. It just seemed it sucks. I almost wish it was like a movie because I'm really into it. I'm ready for the next episode, and then it's just like it ended. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. The only thing about the X-wing thing I was a little surprised of. I thought it was going to be Carson Teva again. He's the character that we've seen throughout all of these post Jedi movies, The Mandalorian, Ahsoka. He's kind of the heavier set guy with a beard and an older fella. I want to say in his 50s or 60s, probably. That's why I thought I kind of half expected him to show up, but that seems kind of silly too, right? The guy's that. I mean, the galaxy's pretty big, right? And I'm just
Yeah, yeah.
to see him everywhere. I'm like, wow. But so in a way, it was kind of okay. That's cool. It doesn't always have to be him, but I thought it was kind of interesting that they didn't put him in there because I think he's been in all the other shows since. So, but no, I hear you. It was kind of a quick episode, like the second one was. What was it, 30 something minutes or just under, I guess. So it wasn't like that introductory 45-minute episode or whatever that was.
Yeah, no, but I think they did, like you said, they're doing a good job of they revealing this. I like the reveal on Ad Adam and Ad Atom and stuff like that. How it was a hidden world. It asks a lot more questions, a lot of things they could delve into, and it's nice because it adds. I really like that it's kind of a new lore thing rather than opposed to trying to fit it into something that's come before. You know what I'm saying? It's something
Well,
different, something
let
new.
me ask you this because it's been mentioned a few times, both on the home planet of the kids and also it was mentioned, I think, with the new character Kim at her what do you call it, astrological observatory there. The Great Works. Are you familiar with that at all?
No, no, no. I know they kept saying that. Well, that's what I'm
Well,
saying. What are the great works?
so admittedly I've not read, unlike 25 years ago when I read the Zahn books and some of the other stuff that used to come out. Obviously, everything changed after Disney took over the franchise, but apparently, in some of the books that have been coming out since then, or is it a book or the comic, The High Republic?
It's a whole series. They got
Okay,
books and
so
it's they got novels, they got comic tie-ins, and then they got like say the smaller children's teen books
yeah,
that all tie and I've actually read a few of them, but I admittedly I'm not it's not like the old EU where I was like,
right. So
getting everything.
the Great Works takes place during the High Republic era, which is the same era that we saw the Acolyte in, right? That was sort of the last great era of the Republic before it fell, including the Jedi, right? They were still held in high esteem. But this is, again, going back to Wikipedia, this is what comes up under Great Works. It says the Great Works were a group of projects undertaken by the Galactic Republic under Supreme Chancellor Lena So. Not a character I'm familiar with, but apparently was the leader of the Republic at that time. It says during the High Republic era, the Starlight Beacon, a massive space station constructed on the frontier of the galaxy, was one of So's great works. Other great works that So had planned included the Republic Fair, which literally was, I guess, a big carnival or big celebration of some sort. It says construction of a communications relays throughout the galaxy, the negotiation of a treaty between the Corn and the Mon Calamari. I'm sure you know those two species.
Yep, yep.
And then cracking the code on Bacta cultivation, the grand renewal on Quen, and other technological innovations. So it sounds like like other periods of Earth history, where you have
Yeah.
individuals who set up, I want to accomplish these things, and then they get these things accomplished. So that's kind of what the great works are referencing, I guess.
I hear you. So maybe that's something from there. Yeah.
I guess.
Because I know the Starlight Beacon. That's the ship that I'm not saying 100%, but I'm almost positive that's a ship in the first novel that they're launching that has the hyperspace tragedy,
Oh,
um, where I don't know, it breaks up in hyperspace, and that's one of the ones that the the wreckage from had destroyed the world that the acolyte was on. Remember they were saying how a hyperspace disaster.
yeah, right,
That's
right.
the Starlight Beacon,
Well,
to the
that's
best
what
of
we.
my knowledge. And then
Well, that makes sense. That would make sense.
so that's cool. I'm gonna have to look more into that. So yeah, that's interesting. Maybe it's some project from the old days.
Well, and it sounds potentially the hiding of all those planets might have been part of the great works. I don't know, but the folks have now referenced it a few times, so it makes me wonder, right? So we'll find out. I'm sure we're going to get more hints, and at the same time, hopefully, we'll get some answers at least by the end of the last episode. Or I guess that'll dovetail into the new movie. I think, right? So we'll probably get more answers there.
Well, as long as they, like I said, I think I mentioned it last week. As long as they can uncanny it, where they answer enough answers and satisfy the story that they're telling, even if they leave other things unanswered for the future, that's always cool too.
Yeah.
I think that'd be interesting to leave questions for, where they just touch upon it and give a little bit more reveal. But I'd have to say so far we're looking good. I'm curious as to where we're going to head. Are they going to get back to Ad-Atten, and is there going to have conflict with the pirates, or the New Republic's going to come more into it? I'm interested in seeing now how it's going to all resolve out.
Yeah. No. Good questions, and I think we'll get some resolution by the end of the series. But I think a lot of the bigger questions may not be resolved until we see the film, which is not next year. It's 26, right?
Gosh, is it that long?
It's either next year or it's the 26th, but it's coming up in the next 2 years. I imagine they've already kind of started some preliminary work. I don't know about shooting, but
Yeah.
it's going to happen soon enough. So I guess, yeah, I think that's the plan, is from what I understand. So
I wonder if that, because I know Ahsoka season 2 is supposed to come out. I wonder if they're going to do that before the movie, and the movie's going to be kind of like the wrap up. That would
well,
seem to make sense.
well, I before certainly before Ray Stevenson died, I would have said yes, but now I'm not so sure. I don't know where they're at on that. I haven't heard. Have you? What they're going to do? Are they going to
No,
recast?
I'm not too sure now. I mean, it just would seem to make sense if, I mean, because why have a movie that's just not unless they're planning a sequel? But I've heard no mention of a sequel. But you figure that, they keep saying the movie is going to be like the tie up to the Filoni verse. Well, that wouldn't make sense to, if it's the tie up, to have Ahsoka season 2 after. You know what I'm saying? But again, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
the
Well,
timetable.
obviously that was out of their control. I mean, the guy dies, and now you've got to figure out what the plan is, because I'm sure one, they had a plan, but as far as what was going to happen with the character, but now they have to figure out, do they want to continue with the character, which means recasting or getting permission from the estate to use his likeness or something like that. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, but that's a question they need to get resolved before they move forward, I guess. So
Yeah, I
because
think they can recast, but he was so good in that role.
well, I agree. Actually, he became one of probably the more interesting characters for me to watch on that show. As the
Agreed.
show, as the series went on, I'm like, I was more interested in finding what's the backstory here, because I think, but in the prequel era, he would have probably been in his 20s, maybe late 20s, wouldn't you say?
Yep, yep,
So
yep.
that seems like there was a lot of history. He certainly would have had a lot of knowledge about the Jedi and the Jedi Temple and all that stuff. So it's too bad. I hope I hope they figure it out, and if they can keep him in there in some way, the character at least, then I think that would be neat to see what happens. But anyhow, we'll see what happens with this show too. Obviously, we've got the next episode coming up in a few days.
Yep, yep. Alrighty, Paulie. It's been good to talk to you.
Here,
And I guess we will see you next week, or maybe I don't know. Yeah, is next week Christmas already? Can't be.
no,
No.
this next week, the week after. So
Okay.
we've still got maybe one more shot at getting another podcast in before the holiday, I think.
Okay, sounds good. Maybe by next week I'll be able to tell you I finished my shopping.
All right.
All right.
Take care.
Yeah, good to see you. I'll see you next week.
Sounds good.
And for everybody else, just want to say thank you for joining me in Darthzartan. Um, and we will be back next week for Skeleton Crew episode 4. I hope everyone has a good week, and may the Force be with you.